Okay, well, hi everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Rachel. I'm one of the lead organizers for Good Cause Troy. And I guess I'll just give a little bit of background just to sort of take our seats here this evening, why we're doing this, and what the next steps will look like for the campaign. But to go forward, let's look back for a moment. So in 2024, the state of New York passed good cause eviction protections, or good cause renter protections, which is legislation to curb unreasonable rent hikes and unjust lease non-renewals or evictions. The goal of the law is to keep renters in their homes at a cost they can afford. While this law should have applied statewide, it being a state law, the agreement that they were able to reach is that cities outside of New York City had to opt in. The upside, though, for us, even though that is very frustrating, was a tenant movement in Troy was born. We collected petition signatures from about 22% of the Troy voter base from the last election cycle to have the city of Troy pass good cause. But unfortunately, the Mantello administration refused to accept those petitions for voters to take that decision to the ballot. Right. Renters from different walks of life and parts of the city had showed up to city council meetings for months, asking the city council to adopt this law that stands to promote housing security and affordability for a majority of Trojans. The Democrat minority, Katie included, listened to us and put good cause on the agenda for a public hearing and a vote. The rest of the council voted it down, as most of us are aware. It was disappointing, frustrating, and maybe not very surprising. But as the campaign, as renters in a renter majority city, we believe that the no vote is an opportunity for much greater action, to organize and vote like tenants. Our ability to stay in safe and hygienic homes affordably is on the ballot this year as a result. Not just in federal or state races, right here in Troy, right now. So there are 6 city council representative seats up for election this coming November. 6 of the 12 candidates are here tonight, representing all 6 districts. In case you were wondering, we did invite the other party candidates through their committee, and for the most part, we were met with silence, although Ryan was here, and I do appreciate that. The candidates have come tonight, that you see before you here, and we'll introduce them and they'll get to introduce themselves, tonight to listen to us and to share their perspectives and commitments to Troy renters. Good Cause Troy is committed for our part to voter education, especially among tenants who are voting in this election season, but we have our sights set on longer-term tenant organizing as well. And, just to pitch it, we want all of you to be part of it. So we welcome you all to the Tenant Candidate Forum, and here are, I'll just introduce Mark Speedy, and Lawrence Mullins, who are our 2 moderators. Thank you so much. Sorry. Next part of the evening, just briefly, we're going to hear from the co-sponsoring organizations. The first person, it'll just be very briefly, who they are, why they're co-sponsoring, and where their table is in the room. So Jude, you can come up first. Yeah. Oh. Surprise. Maybe I should this microphone so that people are not tripping over it.
Hi everybody, my name is Jude. My name is Jude. My pronouns are they, them. I'm one of the co-chairs of Troy Democratic Socialists of America, Troy DSA. Good Cause Troy is a campaign that we started last year as a chapter when this passed statewide. If you're curious to know more about DSA, our table is over here. We are a Democratic member-led organization, so we'd love to have you and to get to know you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Sean. here.
Hi. Hi, I'm Sean Collins. I'm a delegate to and president of the Troy Area Labor Council. We are the local voice for the AFL-CIO here in Troy, Manchester County. We have about 40 affiliated local unions who represent about 10, 12,000 workers across the county in various capacities. You can find me in the back, though I do have to leave early to attend to bedtime with my son. But I will leave my cards there with my contact information if you would like to learn more about what we do and how to engage with the local labor movement. Thank you. I'm also the chair of the Rensselaer County chair of the WFP. My contact information is the same. We're proud sponsor of the Good Cause co-sponsor of the Good Cause campaign here in Troy, and are really pivotal along with other community organizations across the state to get the enacting legislation passed at the state level. Thank you.
Is it Jim or Francis?
Francis is gonna take it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this worked out having it.
Hi, I'm Francis from Troy Indivisible. We're part of the National Indivisible movement. We were part of organizing the Hands Off rallies, the No King's Day, things that get in the news that you've probably heard about. Our meetings are at, well, for this month, they're actually gonna be here because air conditioning. But our normal meetings are last Sunday of the month at Christ Church in downtown Troy. I think that's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you to all of the co-sponsors for this event. I'm going to run through just the guidelines of how this is going to go. So we have a list of pre-submitted questions here we'll be asking our candidates. There will be time at the end of the meeting for people to chat with the candidates and ask follow-up questions. So we ask that people remain respectful, and we will not be engaging in follow-up questions during the debate. Candidates can answer any question, but if they agree with the previous candidate's answer and their answer would be similar, they can simply indicate agreement with the other candidate and pass the mic to help us save time. Candidates will have either 60 or 90 seconds to answer the question, depending on the specific question. And we ask that the audience respect the candidate's time as well. No long periods of clapping, no jeering, no booing, any of that, just so we can keep things moving. And so without further ado, we can go ahead and get started. We'll also be including some reference answers and stated positions on these questions from the Republican candidates as well, who could not or chose not to be here tonight. So first off, question one, have you ever been a renter?
Let them introduce themselves.
Oh yeah, great point. I'll let Lawrence pass the mic down to have everyone introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Phil DiLorenzo. I am the candidate for District 1 for City Council. District 1 is the northernmost district in the city of Troy. I bought a house in Lansingburg in 2017, so I've been here for about 8 years. I've got a wife, I've got a 2-year-old daughter. I have a lot of experience. I've got about 10 years of experience working for the state. I was an auditor for the state, so I've got a good financial background. And also some management experience with the state. I've been a supervisor for about 7 years. In the community, I'm very active. I'm on the Knickerbocker Park Board of Directors, where I'm the vice president. So I'm very active in the community. We do several events every year. We have one coming up on August 15th, if you guys want to come. It's called Nick Night Out, where we try to incorporate the folks in the neighborhood and in Troy with local businesses and local not-for-profits. And we just try to have a nice little barbecue, feed some people, have a nice time. But yeah, we do a bunch of things. Knickerbocker Park, Trick or Treat Street on Halloween. We also do an Easter egg hunt every year. And I'm a huge part of a lot of the large-scale projects that we're doing in Knickerbocker Park. So those things take a lot of coordination, a lot of organization, and I do a huge amount of lifting in getting those things off the ground. So I'm running because I plan to stay here in Troy. I love it here, raising my daughter here, and I want to make, I make a big difference in the park, but I want to make a bigger difference on more of a city level. So I'll leave it there.
Hello, my name is Nicole Struber. I'm running for Troy City Council in District 2, which we're actually in right now. District 2 is Hoosick Street up to 111th, the river up to Oakwood. I am running because I see that District 2, until very recently, when for some reason, probably because the mayor grew up here, things are actually happening in District 2, like paving and lead pipes being replaced. But for the most part, I don't feel like District 2 gets much of a voice in City Council, and that is one of the reasons I'm running. Talking to everybody who lives there, seeing all of the businesses that are closing, hearing about the issues that people encounter, I think that the district needs somebody who's willing to not just speak up for them, but also vote on their behalf. We have a lot of renters in District 2. I've met them door to door. The number of people who have told me about not having heat and being afraid to report that is more than I would like to admit to. It's very sad. But that's why I'm running, because the district in general and Troy as a whole deserves to have somebody who's not only going to speak up, but also vote for their needs.
Hi, my name is Katie McLaren, and I'm the candidate for District 3. District 3 goes from Oakwood up to North Lake Ave, from the end of 15th Street all the way over to Tibbetts, so it encompasses Freer Park, Beeman Park, the hospital, both hospitals. It's a big, it's a fairly big district. I'm actually currently sitting on the council as the D3 representative. I'm running again because I feel like my work isn't done. Unfortunately, the minority has not had the ability to get anything done on the council. Very proud of some of the legislation that we have sponsored, but not much of it gets passed, and good cause is one of those things. So I have lived in Troy my whole life. Actually, I've lived in D3 most of my life. Raised my 5 kids in D3, and currently my 5 grandchildren all live in Troy, just not in D3. So my roots are here. It's the city that I love, and I want to make sure that we do the best we can for it.
Hi folks, my name is Greg Campbell-Cohen, and I'm the candidate for Troy City Council in District 6, which is South Troy. I am on the board of Timber, which is a public interest group here in Troy, which has been focused on a handful of things, but some of those big projects were lead service line replacement in Troy, the Safe Per Day campaign, predatory towing, some code issues, and a handful more. I'm also Workers United's delegate to the Troy Area Labor Council, and previously served as lead organizer for Citizen Action at the time that the state law for good cause was passed, and was one of their delegates to the Housing Justice for All coalition meeting where next steps were discussed. So I'm very excited to be here. I myself, well, I'll leave a little bit of mystery for the next questions. But I'm very excited to be running. I'm very excited to see tenants organizing themselves, advocating for themselves. This is it's a really important moment for tenants to assert themselves in local politics in a way that we have not seen that often in Troy, and we are the majority, and I hope we vote like it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jonna Favreau, and I am the endorsed WFP and Democratic candidate for City Council in District 5. It's a pretty large area. I believe it's about 30% of the city geographically. So it's the east side, goes all the way up to Tibbetts, of Brunswick, all the way down near Hudson Valley. So I've got a lot of walking to do this summer. But I've been a resident of Troy for 21 years now. So I came for my education at Russell Sage College and just never left. I started my professional career here in finance after earning my MBA, and I owned a business downtown on River Street for 7 years, and I started a family here on the east side, which kind of pushed me into this. So about 2.5 years ago, I got involved with the lead replacement project because unfortunately my child had lead poisoning. And so that prompted me to start attending city council meetings because all this time I was here but never engaged. So I really have been involved attending just about every city council meeting since. And I'm pretty heavily involved in the east side, and I decided, well, if I'm attending all of these meetings, then I deserve a voice at the table. So I look forward to that opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, I will start with our questions. So question 1, have you ever been a renter? If so, what was the biggest challenge you experienced while renting? Have you or any loved ones faced a non-renewal or eviction? Lawrence will give the Republican response.
All right, so from District 2, Ryan Brosnan is a current renter. Though he apparently has had personal experience with landlord retaliation as a renter, his public statements and voting record indicate he opposes legislation like Good Cause, which affords tenants due process rights and rent caps. And then the other response we have is from District 6, Tom Casey. Tom has been a renter in the past, but currently owns his home. His public statements and voting record indicate opposition to any legislation that affords tenants rights or due process.
All right, and we will go to Phil first for his answer.
Sure. Yes, I've definitely rented in the past. I rented when I was in college in Rochester, New York, and I also rented, I never rented in Troy, but I rented in Albany. I had relatively decent experiences. However, I remember when I was in school, we rented this very old house, and it had, we were basically uninformed about how high the heating costs were going to be. It had like no insulation. So I think I remember paying more in heat than I did in rent. But no, I actually don't have any experience with anything sort of eviction-wise. So I'll leave it at that.
I have absolutely rented. I rented in Troy at Towers on the Hudson for the first 4 years that I lived here. And I rented about a block from where my house is right now for about 1.5 years. I did just recently purchase a house in January, so very newly non-renter. The worst experience that I had as a tenant was not in Troy, thank God. It was when I lived in Austin, Texas, where I also rented the entire time. It's Texas, it gets really, really hot, and the air conditioning in my apartment was out for 6 weeks. Through July and August, because it was a very old building. It was really cool because it was the original governor's mansion of Texas that they converted into apartments, but that means it was very, very old and they couldn't get the part. So luckily my landlord at the time was willing to work with us. They bought a portable unit. They gave us probably half off rent for that month because it was so difficult to live there without AC. No experience with eviction or non-renewal outside of something being sold, which they had almost no control over. Yeah.
So yes, I have rented. I have rented in Troy, rented in Boston when I was a student, and probably my worst experience renting was there. similar to Phil. The expense for heating the large apartment was just about the same as the rent payment. I have been very fortunate in Troy to have had great landlords, and you know, the kind of landlords that I don't think would be opposed to good cause. As far as eviction goes, I'm currently renting. The house that we owned in Troy for many years, for a lot of personal reasons, we left. We've been renting for several years, and we currently rent the single family home that we live in. And a couple months ago, we were notified that a family member of the owner would like to move into the house. So good cause wouldn't help us because that is a good cause for an owner. So we're currently facing trying to find suitable. I have a daughter with special needs and we have pets, so we can't just, rent a U-Haul and buy a house, as someone on the city council suggested. And we have to be choosy.
10 seconds.
Oh, and so that has proven to be very difficult, but I am very pleased to say that we just made an offer on the purchase of a house in D3. So that was very important that I needed to stay in D3 so that I could run again.
I have been a tenant and am a tenant. I guess I've been a tenant my entire adult life since leaving home. In a handful of different places, but mostly in Troy. The worst issues, there have been a handful. One, there was a problem with the roof that led to an entire wall being covered in black mold, and the landlord, anytime we called him about it, he let us know that a family member was ill. And I was sympathetic for the first month, but after a while it was like, brother, What are some other ones? I had a Civil War era furnace in one apartment that went out in the winter, and it took a week for them to fix that, and that was brutal. And a couple other like health and safety issues that have cropped up, but with almost every landlord, the most consistent problem that I've encountered is holding onto the security deposit unless contested. And that is a month and a half of rent or more in a lot of instances, depending on what the structure of your lease looks like. And the assumption is, I think for a lot of people, these are renters who probably have a lot going on in their life. Is this a fight they're willing to put up? And can we get away with not doing
10 seconds.
So yeah, in summary, I am a renter. I've pretty much always been a renter, and I have definitely faced my share of horror stories with landlords.
For the first 13 years that I lived in Troy, I was a renter, so the only time I ever rented was here in Troy. I've never faced eviction, and none of my family has ever faced eviction, fortunately. I haven't had horrible experiences with landlords. I've had landlords that entered the space without notice. In one situation, the landlord commented on my social life, and it was repeatedly, and it was to the point where it was very uncomfortable, where I felt unwanted in the space. So that prompted me to move. Also to know, my entire renting history was in D4 down on Washington Park. So one would assume that these are like gorgeous upkept buildings. They're not. I then moved into one tiny little studio where the landlord was living in New Jersey. So every time that I had requested an update or something fixed in the apartment, it would take weeks or just not happen because they were out of state. And it got to the point where some of the things, similarly with the mold in the bathroom, got so bad, that's when I had decided to move out of that place. And that's my experience renting here in Troy.
Thank you for those answers. Lawrence.
All right.
you think?
So for our second question, are you or have you ever been a landlord? If so, can you describe how you have related to your tenants? Were you ever responsible for evicting or non-renewing a tenant, and why? And we have 2 answers from our Republicans.
Yes, so Eric Wisher, Republican candidate for D5, is a landlord in Troy. He owns multiple rental properties, either in his own name or through LLCs. It is unknown if he has ever filed eviction proceedings. In D6, Tom Casey was also a landlord. He stated in a local news segment in the spring that he was a city marshal who conducted evictions. He shared in public statements that he believes, without citing specifics, that tenants already have enough rights and landlords currently have too many regulations imposed on their business. We can start with Shakol this time.
Thank you. So I'm newly a landlord. The house that I purchased in January is a 2-family, and it came with tenants in it. And I very unfortunately had to deliver a non-renewal recently because they violated the lease using charcoal grills on a wooden deck, which is very clearly stated that you cannot do for fire safety purposes. And instead of, maybe moving that, they insisted that it was their right to do so, and that is just unsafe for all of us. So I have unfortunately served a non-renewal, but I need to make sure everybody is safe at the same time.
I have never been a landlord, and don't have any plans to be a landlord.
I am not and have never been a landlord.
I have not, and also plan to never be a landlord.
I also am not a landlord, but I do want to add to it. So I know that my father was a landlord for a short time, and he instilled in me these empathetic and fair values, and I know that he was an excellent landlord. He owned a 3-bedroom house, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, and he did an excellent job just taking care of it. Anytime any one of the renters needed anything fixed, I know that he was there because I was there helping him. So I know that it's important to keep a good, healthy relationship with people that you're renting to, and between and as a renter, I certainly you want to have a professional, good relationship with that person. So it needs to be fair. And, but yeah, no, I'm not a landlord.
All right, next question. What do you know about the tenant experience in Troy? What issues have you encountered in your constituent outreach so far? For example, cost of rent, access, quality of housing stock, etc.
All right, so from District 6, from Tom Casey, he's claimed that he has heard from his tenant constituents regarding their troubles with renting in Troy and bad landlords. He has advised constituents to stay away from bad landlords, but ultimately believes that landlords should be able to do what they want with the properties that they own.
I have certainly met many people in the last couple of years who are renters. I live in a kind of a good mix of 2-family homes and single-family homes. I know that the renters whose landlords are not local are the ones who have the most problem. Most of the houses that I encounter are owner-occupied, which I know makes a big difference. I know in the RBI area though, the rentals there, they have really big issues. Most of the companies that rent are LLCs, or they're not local. I have actually talked to the parents of some of the students through the RBI's the off-campus housing office, and talked about how difficult it is for them to help their students or to empower their students to deal with landlords who are taking advantage.
15 seconds.
And I know in our own search, the quality and the price, they don't match. They're just so out of whack that it's very difficult to find good affordable housing.
In my own experiences and in talking with constituents, evictions have definitely come up quite a lot, but maybe not as much as unresponsiveness from landlords when requesting repairs, or heel dragging or really cheap sort of fixes that don't do much except slap a coat of paint over it. Slapping a coat of paint over it is a palpable issue in South Troy's rental markets, and you can see it all over, especially like window panes and fridges. Honestly, anything that you can slap a coat of paint on, or could think to, it's been done. Yeah, I would say that evictions and unresponsiveness, and also just sort of arbitrary decisions on the part of landlords that people don't feel empowered to fight back on, or more realistically, they have a life to lead, and they understand that the court process doesn't necessarily always bounce their way, and so they cut their losses. There is a big human impact when that happens, especially, your life is anchored around your home, and a lot of things change when you move. And so part of why I'm here is because I would like people to stay in the homes that they love. Thank you.
So I have done a lot of canvassing, specifically in D1 and D2 for the lead service replacement, just notifying constituents that they might have lead pipes and how to check that. Sometimes you don't even want to walk up the steps. You don't even have to have the door open to know what the inside looks like, because the outside is not safe. And also at the door during those canvassings, handing over a piece of paper to say, hey, you might have a lead pipe in your basement, and then hearing the tenant say, I don't want to give this to my landlord. They don't have access to the basement to check, but they're afraid to notify their landlord of this potential issue because they're afraid of the retaliation. And I face that a lot in those two districts, which I'm sure is citywide. Specifically to D5, District 5, I'm specifically hearing about the cost of rent for the quality of the apartments that are available.
Thank you.
Yeah, similar issues I've heard that you guys have already heard from, but quick story. I have a couple of absentee landlords on my block, and they have rentals. It's a couple of multi-family units, and I'm close with those renters. And so I see them outside almost every day. So I walk my dog, I walk around on the street with my daughter, and so I know these folks very well, but I don't know the landlords. And they'll complain about issues that come up on the properties that are not necessarily their responsibility or their fault. Things like junk accumulation or trash not being taken, things like that, lawns not being mowed. So I helped these folks out. They were afraid to ask the landlord to fix these issues, and so they asked me to file a code enforcement, a complaint with the city, and it remedied their issues, and they were very appreciative. So absentee landlords.
District 2 is very similar with the absentee landlords. I myself sprained my ankle walking down the stairs, not up them. But the steps on many houses are not safe. They're missing the railings. As I've been talking to constituents, especially petitioning, which is in cooler months, people don't have heat and or windows are broken that haven't been fixed, and they often will tell you, like, no, if I report this to the landlord, I'm afraid I'm not gonna have a place to live. And that is a terrible feeling for anybody to have. Like,
that kind of insecurity is just unfair and inhuman. So that's why I'm here, why I'm all for a good cause eviction. They really need the protections so that they can report it. And luckily, sometimes we are around to do that for them. I've provided the resources to many constituents of, this is who you can talk to, this is how you can do it. I will say sometimes they just don't know how, and it's not all a fear thing. So being able to provide the right information so they can either report it or even get it fixed, or depending on the situation.
Thank you. All right, so many households in Troy are rent burdened, meaning that they pay over 30% of their gross income on housing costs. What impact, if any, do you think this has on Troy's local economy?
No Republican response on this one.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, I think it has a pretty big impact on Troy's local economy. We're like a lot of Rust Belt cities where things have come in that are overwhelmingly focused on consumption-based, a service economy, and part of making that work is people have to have money, and the less that you have, the more businesses are going to suffer. And I think you're seeing that right now all over Troy, where businesses have to shutter because people are not, going out to eat. People are not making the sorts of purchases that they would typically make. And is that entirely rent? No. Other things have gone up, a lot of which are related to housing, but maybe not rent specifically. But it has a huge impact on our local economy and also the sort of culture that we have in Troy. For me, if you want to live in Troy, I want you to have a house that you can afford to live in. And it's that simple. And so we have to have housing stock that supports that. And I think as places get priced out, a lot of the really rich cultural things that residents can bring to the table also get priced out in favor of a wealthier class of people. And I value what they contribute, but they're not what made Troy.
To save time, I echo everything that Greg just said. But I also want to know, when I was here in Troy and when we had first opened our business in downtown Troy, there were a lot of people moving to Troy. And there were a lot of businesses opening, and some of them, maybe a handful, are still open, but the majority of them have closed. And I think that it's related to the rising costs of housing, just because, as Greg said, people can't afford to spend their money either in the shops or in the restaurants. And I would love to see that controlled so that more people can not only move to Troy, but to stay here and to settle down here and put the roots down and support the businesses who are struggling to stay open.
I'm just going to agree with everything that Greg and Jonna said.
As somebody who grew up very, very poor, having rents increase like they're increasing right now would have decimated my family. So I wholeheartedly agree with and will do what I can to keep rents at a reasonable rate. We have children who live here too, and I feel like when a lot of people are talking on the other side of the aisle about good cause and renters and prices, they're not really thinking about the whole picture. They're thinking about maybe the people sitting on this stage, and that's about it. Not our grandparents, our children, the people who rely on a safe place to live and have a very limited income, and how that's going to change their lives. And like Greg said, it contributes to Troy in such a different way than just the people who come from out of town for the farmer's market every Saturday. Need those people too, but Troy needs to be able to support a rich population, rich not in the money way, in there's more to give than money, so we want to support that.
Yeah, I agree with everything that everyone has said. So I've been in my house for 8 years now in Lansingburg, and I've watched the prices of the houses and the rents just skyrocket around me. But all the housing is remaining the same, and it's really frustrating. I'm sure it's very frustrating for a lot of my neighbors and a lot of the people that rent up in Berg. One thing I'm noticing is I think it's just getting harder for families, and it's frustrating. At the Knickerbocker Park, a couple of weeks ago, we started this free meals program. So, we're seeing kids coming in just so they can grab breakfast and lunch. Their families can't provide for them because they're paying a ton in rent. And these kids, they have to come and take a couple of breakfasts, take a couple of lunches, they stick some in their pockets, and they go back home so they have something to eat. And it's sad and it's frustrating. And I'm also seeing, there's a desert of economic activity in Lansingburg. And I think part of that is because that everybody's rent is very high. And there's not a lot of, excess money to spend on things like going out to eat, anything really. So it's very frustrating, and I think we need to do something about it.
All right. Do you support passing good cause legislation in Troy? How would you vote on a good cause ordinance if elected? Would you override a veto from the Mantell administration if you had the council votes for it? Additionally, do you support good cause with its strictest parameters of including every property with more than one unit?
We have 3 Republican responses. So the first is from District 1, Bill Keel. He opposes good cause on his belief that it would increase costs for landlords, which would be passed on to tenants. In District 2, Ryan Brosnan opposes good cause on the basis that it, quote, does not adequately protect tenants from rent increases, nor does it address other major issues for tenants like code violations. And from District 6, Tom Casey opposes good cause on the basis that property owners should have the right to do whatever they want with their property, and that based on what he says he has heard from Albany, that good cause eviction makes it more difficult for landlords to evict bad tenants. Start at the other end.
There were a lot of questions, and I think I have them memorized. Do I support good cause legislation? Personally, yes, I do. How would I vote? I want to say right now that I would vote in favor of the legislation, but I also have to acknowledge that it is my job to vote not on my personal values and beliefs, but to listen to the constituents and the residents of Troy. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here today. I'm also going to acknowledge that the majority of residents of Troy are tenants. So I can make an assumption of what they want. The veto, yes, I would veto that at this point. Confidently, and what was the other part of the
Passing it under the strictest parameters.
Oh yes, with 1 or more unit. Yes, I would.
Ditto. I'm very firmly in favor of good cause. I'm the easiest lobbying conversation you'll ever have about it. I want the broadest possible parameters for protections, and I hope that the state law is updated to provide a broader spectrum of support to tenants. This is not radical legislation. And I think on some level it is recognizing tenants as full human beings, which is not something that is limited to whether or not you have a mortgage and or house. It's legislation that identifies your right to just stay in place if you're doing everything that you're supposed to. And I think homeowners in general would object to the notion that their house could be seized if they were paying their mortgage payments because the bank would like it. And I don't see a lot of daylight between those two things. Thanks.
Yes, I am 100% behind good cause. I would welcome the chance to veto if the mayor were to do so. I mean, welcome the chance to override a veto if she were to do that. I also support a very broad, I think tenants deserve every protection possible. I work at school too, which is right around the corner, and I have seen several families just gone, just one day, just gone, because their ceiling caved in due to the landlord's lack of care of the building, or code showed up in the middle of the night and evicted people, or whatever. Far too many of our vulnerable citizens, but also the majority of our citizens deserve to be protected. And I don't think, I would dispute the fact that landlords should be able to do whatever they want to do with their property.
Yes, I support it and would vote for it. While I think it could be stronger, as you mentioned with the last question, I don't believe that perfection should get in the way of progress. And I don't think you can be for tenants and for good cause and claim that this law doesn't do enough and then vote against it. Those are two different things. Yes, I would absolutely help override a veto, and I think good cause laws help move tenancy and housing more into a commodity area. There are plenty of things where there are laws that, there has to be heat in the wintertime, like you have to provide that to somebody. Why are we not having to provide housing? Like, how is it useful to have somebody on the street instead of in a home? So I think this is a step in the direction to make sure that everybody is treated as a human and not money.
Yeah, when I first heard about good cause, I was hearing all the scary horror stories from the Republican city council people. I was worried. I said, those things, they resonate with some people, and so I had some concerns about it. However, once I learned what good cause was, which I think some city council people need to do a little bit more research. Once I learned what it was, how can you not support it, right? It's about fairness. It's about capping rent increases. It's about allowing families and people that live here, fair access to the place that they're in. It lets them have some stability in their life. They're not going to be afraid that you're going to get some 40% rent increase out of the blue next time your lease is up. With that, yes, I would support it. Yes, I would vote for it if I was in city council. Am I hitting all these? Okay. Would I override? Would I veto Carmela's administration happily? And would I support admittedly, I'm not a professional at this, so I'm not sure. I'm still listening about what good cause is, but I support what it is now, and I'd like to learn more and see what my constituents want to say about the most strictest pieces of that.
Thank you. For our next question, would you favor or oppose establishing a residential occupancy permit program in Troy to ensure rental properties are safe for occupancy? Please explain your position.
We have one confirmed answer on this, and that is Ryan Brosnan has expressed support for an annual code inspection program similar to what Albany has currently.
I'm listening on this one. I don't know too much about this. An annual inspection sounds like a smart thing. An occupancy permit, I think, was the question. There might be something there, but yeah, I'm still listening on this. I don't really know about this one.
I was fortunate to work on this with Nina Nichols when she was running for mayor a couple of years ago. So I do have a little bit of information about what it can look like. I like the idea of a residential occupancy permit program. I think that in Troy, especially with the
lack of people working for Troy right now and the lack of funds and budget to support that, it's going to be difficult to actually enact. Should we work towards it 100%, and I would be willing to help work towards that. I do believe in it as a general idea, but I don't know if Troy would be able to support it in practice right now.
I actually totally agree with Shakol. I am in favor of an ROP for sure. We've talked about it, we've had a lot of discussions about a housing task force, which would include an ROP, and which would fall right in line with good cause. But those things cost money. They're manpower, and that doesn't seem to be a priority right now in the city. So it would be hard to enact right now, but it's absolutely something that we should be working towards.
I am supportive of residential occupancy permit programs. We have it locally, not just in Albany, but in also places like Cohoes and Waterfleet. It's completely doable. I agree that the budget would have to change, and so we should change the budget. It's that simple.
I too am in support of ROPs, and I echo everything that has been said before me.
Thank you. Next, given that legislation like good cause has some limitations, what other legislation or strategies would you support on the city council to help keep rents affordable?
We have two responses. So the first is from District 1. Bill Keel thinks that, quote, we have a good thing going here with the, quote, low rents in Troy. He opposes legislation that would put additional costs on landlords because he believes that those costs would increase rents for tenants. And in District 6, Tom Casey believes that rents are rising because people aren't paying them and because people from downstate accept ridiculously high rents.
Sorry, I'm trying to process those words. I think so. All of this is very new in my brain. We did not get these questions ahead of time, so I have only just thought about it right now. My initial gut feeling is that Troy should have some kind of a pilot type program, but for renters and not the developers. Like, encourage people to move here, some kind of an annual money that comes back to you, kind of like where homeowners get STAR, like renters can get something similarly. I have no idea how that would work yet, but I think it's doable.
At the risk of sounding nonsensical like those answers, I believe other, things like an ROP, things like a housing task force, which would include a vacancy study to look at where are the vacancies and what can we do to improve those vacancies. I think working hand in hand with the Troy Community Land Bank, which is able to identify and rehab some of those properties. And then maybe a little bit more vetting before we allow a developer to come in and buy up a bunch of houses and then move out of the area. I'm not sure how that could work, but I think things like that really need to be taken into account, and I think a housing task force and a vacancy study would go a long way towards that.
Yeah, I share an interest in that. I think you can focus on regulations, you can focus on supply, you can focus on some combination of the two. One of the big ones I think we should be thinking about here in Troy, it's a blessing and a curse that our city is very cool. One of the problems with that is Airbnb rentals that of course take attractive housing stock off of the market and are used as like quasi hotel rooms. Airbnb is not what it was when it was first created anymore. It's a full-fledged business. And I would like to see short-term rental units curbed dramatically in Troy to bring that housing stock back to Trojans. So there's that. And also just smart development, we don't have to say yes to every single project, but when we do, we have a bit of bargaining power there to ask for a small portion of those units to be set aside as affordable housing units. And actually affordable housing, I'm talking like 60% of area median income, not 100, which is an absurd sort of, it's a very high number. What counts as 100% area median income. So yeah, those are the two things that I'm most interested in. But good cause is definitely a great starting place.
This is not an area of expertise for me, but all those things that were mentioned before me, I'm on board with, and they would definitely be a step in the right direction. Also, to piggyback of what Greg said, I believe there's a hotel tax for Airbnbs that are already established. So that would be a great, I don't know how much income that would be, but a great source of income for the city to help fund the task force and the ROP program and the staffing there. Because the staffing issue in Troy is a problem. I think it's 42 vacancies this month. Oh, 55.
Thank you. Yeah, I think good cause is a good starting place. And then another thing that just keeps coming to mind because it's such an issue in Lansingburg is just making sure that, and just holding landlords accountable. Holding landlords accountable for their properties. Again, not trying to make it too hard for them, but making sure that they're upkeeping their properties in a way that's a livable way, and that it so they're keeping their properties in a good condition.
Thank you. What is your plan to win your council seat? How can tenants help you win?
Doors, knocking on doors, I think, for I think D3 is largely a Democratic district. We also have a pretty large number of working family party voters in D3. I'm endorsed by the WFP and the Troy ALC as well. Yeah, I think getting the word out that what I stand for is to support tenants, support people, to be human. I mean, really, what else do you need? But yeah, I would love help at doors, distributing information, sharing it on your socials, things like that, just so that people know who I am.
I think the plan in D6 is to give people something to vote for, and I think in some ways that has been lacking for a while. My path to victory runs through tenants, through union members, and through parents and everyday people who are seeing their quality of life decline because of issues related to their tenancy or any host of other administrative failures on the part of the Mintel administration. I'm feeling very good about it, but I would love people's help in getting the word out and activating some folks that have sat the last couple cycles out, understandably. But now is the time to take Troy back.
Same, doors. District 5, I have the numbers in my favor, but we currently have a Republican representative. So that just shows that I have to work, and I'm gonna work hard. And I did that. I had a primary for the WFP line this early summer, and man, did I work those doors. And I love it because it's really a chance to hear and to connect with people who really aren't connected with any of this, who have no idea what city council does. And I've lost the line, which stinks, but every single one of those votes were real connections. They weren't lined up. They weren't my friends pulling in a favor. They were real connections. And I had 3 people come out and vote for the first time in their life.
10 seconds.
And that felt like a win. And that is what I'm willing to do, and I would love your help doing for the rest of the summer.
Yes, so I'm in District 1, which has been held by Republicans for as far back as the previous election data shows, maybe even longer, I'm sure. So it's going to be an uphill battle for me. One of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stand out from the current representative, Mr. Keel, because I think I'm the antithesis of everything that he is. I don't think people understand who they have representing them in Lansingburg. So I'm trying to get the vote out. I'm trying to activate some voters. Again, like other folks have said that haven't voted in the past, or they're not registered with the Democrat or Working Families, blanks, independents. So I'm trying to get the word out. I need folks to walk with me. I need folks to send out mailers for me. I need all the things to win. Like I said, it's going to be an uphill battle, but Bill's a weak candidate, and he's beatable, and he's lazy. I know that there's money that the Republicans will probably try to put behind him to keep that seat, but with the folks that we have with tenants, like Lansingburg's a huge tenant-centric neighborhood, and even up the hill, there's plenty of renters in Stone Ledge, and so I think there's a huge opportunity to get the word out in Lansingburg and flip that seat.
So District 2 has more registered Democrats than Republicans by 3 to 1, but they don't vote. And the biggest issue that I have encountered by both talking to people and just looking at the numbers comes down to good cause. People don't care about voting when they're worried about where they're gonna live, or where their next meal is coming from, or how they're gonna get their kid to school, or pay their medical bills. And that is a huge problem in District 2. So the way that we're approaching this is going to be making it easy for the voter. I could very much use people not just to walk on doors. So much like the way, unfortunately, Jana's WFP was taken from her, you can register to vote not at the polls. They'll mail you a ballot, you fill out the ballot, you sign the ballot, somebody picks it up and takes it to BOE for you. That makes it easy on the voter. So
10 seconds.
even the single moms who have 3 jobs, we can somehow work that in, and they don't have to take time out of their day to go vote.
Thank you. If you win your election, how will you overcome partisan divides that may hinder or complicate your efforts to represent tenant constituents' interests in affordable housing in Troy? Next one is.
Yeah, as a district representative, should I be one? I'm everybody's representative, and I take that seriously. I don't think that the overwhelming majority of tenants in South Troy are likely to be Republicans, but insofar as they are constituents, and it wouldn't change how I advocate for them, certainly.
Same, yes, and when I pointed out that we currently have a Republican representative, to me, it's not really Republican versus Democrat. It's just, are you doing the work? Are you listening? Are you representing your district and all of Troy? And I've worked, or tried to work, with 2 administrations now, one be a Democratic and now a Republican, and I hope to continue those conversations. And I hope to bring more transparency, not only to the constituents, but among all of us, to make sure that information is shared regardless of party lines. And I promise to do that so that everybody on council has the opportunity to make an informative decision for the residents of Troy.
So I didn't know how badly partisan it was until I got there. And it just really, truly is difficult to try and work together. We have successfully done it, so I know it can be done. But it's not for lack of trying to have conversations. As far as constituents in D3, I rarely even know if someone contacts me what their party is. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is that if they need help, hopefully I can help them. But I would be there to represent the entire district. No, party wouldn't matter.
Same, that's the job, is you represent the district, and the hard part of that on the constituent side is that oftentimes the person who is the loudest thinks that their opinion is the most important, and weighing that against all of the constituents. Party does not matter, it's taking into consideration what everybody needs and making a decision that will benefit the majority of the constituents. For working with the other party, I work in corporate America, you've got to deal with it all the time. You figure it out. That doesn't mean we'll always be successful, but having good conversations with people and treating everybody like they are humans goes a long way.
Yeah, for this, echoing what everyone has said, for me, I've done a lot of work with other, previous city councilmen from the other side of the aisle. I try to put it as, we frame it as Troy first, as for us we do Berg first. I know it sounds, it's romantic, but we try to put, we put our differences aside. We work for things like the kids, like the parks, and I think that, that's something that everyone can get behind, is things like infrastructure and the good of the community as a whole.
All right. Do you support passing inclusionary zoning legislation for Troy as a way to create new affordable housing units? For context, inclusionary zoning is a land use policy that requires or encourages housing developers to include a percentage of affordable units in new residential developments.
I don't know much about this, but instincts tell me yes. And also through conversation, I don't want to not make sense and not say something that's not true. But the percentage that I think is used is still higher than what most people are making here in Troy. So even if the lowest amount of rent, like sometimes that's still out of reach for a lot of our residents here in Troy. So I think, yes, we should include more zoning for lower income housing, but also evaluating like what those numbers are, percentages, so that the residents can truly afford those rents.
I do support inclusionary zoning. The numbers that you use are going to be based on a lot of factors, one of which is how hot your real estate market is, and that's how fundamentally strong your housing market is. And so I'm not going to say any numbers right now because it could be different by January. I do think that you've seen really successful models of inclusionary zoning across New York State. And that some of the critics are maybe not pointing to the right problems and advocating for the general interests of developers more so than diagnosing the problem in their own city. Not talking about any city in particular or any Times Union columnist. I'm supportive of inclusionary zoning. I think we have to be realistic about what's possible, and it is a negotiation with developers that we're going to have to re-examine constantly based on where the city is at the moment.
I also support inclusionary zoning. I think we need to level the playing field. Everyone should have the opportunity to live in a brand new building. There should be rents that are affordable for the average citizen in Troy.
I echo my colleagues. I too support it and have nothing additional to add.
Yeah, I support it too. It's a fairness thing for me. You know, I think all of us value that fairness and that equity. So I think we need to carry that forward in Troy.
All right, so many Troy renters are only a couple missed paychecks or benefits payments away from being homeless. Residents have been observing rising homelessness in Troy, especially among the elderly and disabled. The cost of housing is one of the greatest risk factors. Would you support the expansion of supportive housing for the homeless in Troy? If so, how would you do so on the council? If not, what alternatives do you envision for addressing rising homelessness? And for some added context, there is state funding for supportive housing for homeless individuals, but nonprofits in Troy have run into extensive opposition from the neighbor NIMBY concerns to zoning board denials when they have applied to open or expand these services.
That was a lot. I'll keep it short and sweet because I'm not a pro at this stuff, but I'm in support of supportive housing. I think you need to do it right. I think you need to have community involvement from the get-go. You need to have things like 24/7 management, and it just needs to be, you know, I think that we all, or everybody, deserves a place to go if they're down and out on their luck. And it's really important. There's been plenty of success stories where supportive housing has helped people turn their lives around. So it's an important thing. We need it in Troy, and it just needs to be done correctly and with supervision. And I think the city can lead the way on that.
District 2 actually has a lot of these right now. A brand new women's shelter just opened last week, and I agree with Phil that it needs to be done well. Something that I'm both reading on pages online and talking to some constituents about is that they don't like how it was run, which is the problem here. But that's where you work together and plan it out. And if you have 24/7 management, like Phil mentioned, if you have talked to the neighbors, if you have it in a location that makes sense, it's really important so that people can get back on their feet. And I guarantee the people who seem to have a problem with it definitely don't support people being on the corner either. So give them a bed, or that's it, that's the option. Let's give them a bed.
Yeah, supportive housing, I would be 100% behind. Again, like Shaquille and Phil mentioned, it's gotta be done right. I know there's, whatever community it's proposed for, there's always opposition by people maybe who don't know enough about it, maybe who are looking at bad models of it. But we're talking about humanity. You know, I don't know how many other people in this room, but I've been in that position where, you know, one bad accident or, you know, having a hard time and could be that close to, you know, to disaster. And people in that situation, in most cases, you know, without underlying mental health issues, they don't want to be there. And so, just like passing a law in Saratoga about camping on the streets, sitting on a park bench, just like what's coming down the pike in Troy with panhandling being outlawed. It's, you know, we're talking about human beings, and absolutely we should do what we can to support them.
I do support supportive housing. Like Nicole said, it's not really a question. If you want to take care of the homeless population, you know, sometimes at the doors, people who, you know, in some ways understandably are really upset with things in the neighborhood, will say like, well, I just want them gone. It's like, what does that mean? You know, like, taken care of, you know, that, like, that, the only solution to it is to address it with supportive housing. I would like that to look as much like a normal neighborhood as possible. I think part of the problem is that the buildings themselves are stigmatized, the neighbors neighbors are able to object to a specific location, whereas if things were more integrated into the community, it would be less noticeable, fairer, and safer. And I guess the other thing is, we have to be realistic about what parcels and buildings are going to be used for in Troy. I know in the ZBA just a couple of days ago, there was an objection to affordable housing that was basically like, this is for light industrial use. And I don't think a handkerchief factory is coming back to Troy. And so, I think part of it is maybe a little bit more flexibility of the zoning code.
Being at this end, I'm just gonna echo what everybody before me has said, because I don't have any further solutions than what's been suggested.
All right, and this is our last question. In Troy, available rental inventory is low for some of the same reasons as other growing municipalities. But as a college town, an increasing number of rental properties are for students only. Municipalities like Binghamton have passed zoning regulations to limit student-only housing to specific areas, while other cities are looking at incentivizing landlords to rent to locals. How would you address rental unit shortages exacerbated by student housing?
Well, the shortages side and the student house, I feel like it's two separate questions. So the housing shortage side. I very much like the accessory dwelling unit laws that have been passed in that program. I just reached out to potentially see what that looks like on my property, because I have a double lot in their space and I would love to give somebody housing. I'm not in a section that really deals with student housing. D2 is not super close to RPI. So I agree that students should have a safe place to live, because that is incredibly important. I honestly did not know that there was student-only housing up the hill by RPI, so I'm gonna let other people deal with that part of the question.
Well, I think student-only housing gets a bad rep because too many out-of-area landlords allow their properties to be overrun, and there's not a lot of oversight. I know RPI is working on trying to improve relations between the community and the student population. I don't know that I would want to rent an apartment in a building full of students if they were made available. So I'm not really sure what the answer is, but I think it does take a lot of putting community heads together and coming up with some solutions. RPI is very important to Troy, as our SAGE, and Hudson Valley. Students need housing. As a parent of several college students at one time, it's important, but so are the citizens of Troy, and there's a housing shortage for the people who are spending their life here. So I'm not really sure what the solution is, but I think it is definitely something to address.
I definitely echo what Katie says about feeling uncomfortable being a not student in student-only housing. That would be socially tragic. I have no objection to student-only housing in principle. I think it becomes less of a problem the better our housing stock looks in the city, and so things like the land bank, revitalizing existing units is a great place to start. Smart development, building tall is probably a good way to go. The problem of student-only housing diminishes the broader our housing stock is. I also think that RPI should be a partner to Troy in identifying and addressing these concerns in maybe a more active way than historically they have been.
Yeah, I don't have any other I don't know the solution, but I do know in District 5, we do have a number of student-only housing, and we do have a number of fraternities and other houses within the district that are rented out not strictly to students, but they seem to be continuously rented to students just because they're absentee, and you can tell just by looking at the buildings, specifically up near Tibbetts. I went to parties in those houses back in 2004. I know what happened. You can look at them and you can still tell that they're mostly student housing. In an ideal world, I mean, I don't know the fluctuation of how frequently they are vacant. In an ideal world, it would be great if there was a partnership with the city, with these organizations, these landlords. Some of them are huge property owners, like the United Group, I believe they're the ones on Congress Street, can't think of the name. Anyway, if we could use those for the people who are facing, are down on their luck and are houseless for a short period of time, it would be a great partnership to use those properties while they're typically vacant for a month or two, while people could get their feet underneath them and then rent elsewhere within the city in dignified housing.
Yeah, some great points up here. I don't really have too much else to add other than, I don't have a problem with student housing only. We have to work with RPI and the other schools in our city because they're important partners. They really are. They make Troy what it is. So if we just work with them, we need to make sure we work with them on any solutions.
All right, thank you all very much for participating in our forum. Thank you to everyone who has attended. I want to give a quick shout out again to our co-sponsors for this event, DSA, Indivisible, TALP, I'm forgetting anyone. WFP, for coming out and helping us support this. For anyone who is interested, we have tables around here for the candidates as well as those organizations. Go and talk and learn about everything that they're doing. Also, the candidates will be sticking around for questions afterwards. Go talk to them, figure out what they're doing, and if you'd like to get involved. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great night.